Welcome to the channel. So I got the question in the comment section. What are my thoughts on the Super Duty going from the 6-speed automatic transmission to the 10-speed automatic transmission, similar to the one found in the F-150s, but obviously beefed up a little bit to go in the Super Duty platform. I thought that was a good question, so I figured I'd do a video on the topic. I think it's going to be cool in the sense that you get more gears and potentially get the RPMs down a little bit lower for people who have the 430 gear ratio. The RPMs can be a little bit higher on the highway if you're cruising like 80. Nothing crazy, but it's about 2,500 RPM, cruising about 80 miles an hour with 430 gears with the current 6-speed. But maybe it would be some benefit there to go into the 10-speed by having another gear ratio and getting the RPMs a little bit lower, potentially getting a little bit better fuel economy. But there's not a whole lot of MPG to be gained by doing that, you know. But I mean, right at the 2,500 range seems to be very, very optimum for the 6.2 gas engine. But the only way to know is if we were to actually test it side by side. Some of the other benefits, I mean, a few more gears, maybe something a little bit lower to get heavier loads moving, or, you know, maybe even eliminate the need to have a 430 gear if you could have that ratio with a different gear ratio. Maybe there's some benefits there to be gained. But if it were up to me, if I were in charge at Ford, I wouldn't put the 10-speed in the Super Duty. The reason is the 6-speed is in this truck. The 6-speed transmission is extremely reliable. The 10 speeds, I haven't had any issues with mine. I have two of them. My 18 F-150, which is over there around the corner, that one has 17,000 miles, and this one only has about 1,000 miles on it. It's my wife's truck. And I mean, they haven't had any major issues or anything, but there has been a few times where it didn't feel like it was going into the right gear. It seems to be like some kind of a learning process that the transmission goes through, but nothing really, you know, that makes you think, oh, don't get the transmission, don't get the truck. Still a good transmission and everything. It's definitely sportier. The 10 speeds are sportier transmissions. They shift more sporty. Like when you put them in sport mode, they shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sequentially, which is really fun. But the 6 speeds are so reliable. Now, there's no negative, you know, to driving the 6-speed. Yeah, the 10 speeds are a little bit more fun, but it's still gonna be made to like a 6.2 or maybe the new 7.3. It's not like it's gonna be under as much torque as like the EcoBoost or anything. But as someone who plows snow or something like that, I don't know, it's almost better to use the 6-speed just because of the fact that you know it's more reliable, you know it's less moving parts, and it's something that's been used for so long that it's probably, in my opinion, be better just to stick with the 6-speed. Now, that being said, if you have, you know, it's Ford, they have all this money or whatever that they can put this transmission in this truck. I don't know if it's cheaper or whatever, if it's more expensive, if it's cheaper for them just to put the 10-speed in this truck. But if it's not, if it's more money to do the 10-speed, it probably makes sense to stick with the 6-speed instead of putting that extra revenue into a 10-speed. And if I had extra money in the company, this is hypothetical, if I was in charge at Ford, I would, instead of putting the money into a 10-speed transmission, which has arguably minimum benefits, I would put the money into the engine. The 6.2 liter gasoline V8 is a good engine, but it could be a lot better with the addition of a few more technologies. GM in 2019, I believe, went to a direct injected, dual injected engine. So it's direct injected along with port injected, and I think doing that adds a lot of value, and I think it potentially makes a lot more sales, because when you look at the 6.2 from the aftermarket standpoint, there's not a whole lot you can do for power, because even if you were to say sink a bunch of money into it, maybe $6,000-7,000 into a supercharged kit or something like that, the gains are not necessarily going to be worth it because of the fuel injection system. You're not getting to the 700 horsepower range with one of these engines. You're probably, you're at 385-ish, I think, on the horsepower with one of these right now. You will probably get maybe 500. I mean, you still get a significant amount of power by doing a power adder like a supercharger or something like that, but you're not gonna get insane like horsepower out of it. And the reason for that is the fuel injection system. Direct injection has a lot more power, it has a lot more torque, it makes the motors more efficient, because when you go direct injection, your compression can be cranked up a little bit higher. If you ever look at the compression ratio on one of these engines, I believe they're something like 10-to-1 or something like that. But you start to hit a bottleneck without direct injection as far as compression is concerned, because of detonation and things like that, which direct injection helps out with detonation. And then you'd also still have port injection, because these engines need a lot of fuel because their displacement's so high. But if you had both injection systems, you'd have the ability to gain so much more power and torque. And for the aftermarket, if for guys who want a lot of horsepower, you'd be able to get a 6.2 instead of getting a diesel, and you could throw a supercharger on it, and you can have potentially a better performing engine than the diesel. But there's a lot to be gained with the 6.2 the way it is. I know they built the new engine, I think it's a 7.3 liter gasoline V8. That's all cool and all, but it almost, if it were up to me, I'd just do a better version of the 6.2, maybe better heads or better the heads on this, it has an overhead cam design, but it's not a dual overhead cam, it's not variable valve, I don't think. It's just a 2 valve per cylinder overhead cam, and there's not a lot of benefit there to even having overhead cams without doing some kind of a dual overhead cam or something like that. The only benefit to having an overhead cam that I can think of is you can run a little bit higher RPM with less valve float versus a push rod engine, which all those extra moving parts, you got push rods, rockers, lifters, all those extra moving parts can limit the top end of the motor, the actual final RPM of the motor. But at minimum, I would think that instead of having a 10-speed, it'd be more effective to have direct injection along with port injection, dual injection, which is kind of where the industry is going. It's what GM did, and they're getting a lot more power out of their V8 engines, and they're going to be able to outcompete the Ford engines just based on the fact that they're doing direct injection now. So 10 speeds are cool. I think it's cool that they're doing it, but if it were up to me, I would say more power out of the 6.2. And whatever they do with the 7.3, it's cool that they came out with the 7.3, but it's not a dual injection engine. I think if they were going to do the 7.3, maybe to replace the V10, instead of putting money into having the 10-speed, why not just continue to make the 6-speed, which is tried and true, and do direct injection along with dual injection, which is pretty much what all the other vehicles now are running. I mean, all the F-Series trucks, all the F-150 trucks are running dual injection. They're getting a lot more power out of the 5.0, and you could now supercharge the 5.0 and get to 700-800 horsepower, as much as the Battleman can handle. And there's a lot of benefit there. You see all over social media people putting up vehicles or videos of the F-150s with 5.0s making all this power, and the 6.2 could handle more power than the 5.0. I mean, it's got better cylinder liners. It's an iron engine. The 5.0 went to a spray-in cylinder liner, which is some believe is a weak point for that motor, which seems to be the case. But an all-iron engine with aluminum heads could potentially handle more power across those cylinders than the 5.0. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the 10-speed in Super Duty. I love the Super Duty the way it is with the 6-speed. It's the torque shift, I think they called it, is a great shifting transmission. It's heavy duty. It feels like a work truck. I don't need all those gears, man, just to tow stuff around. I think 6-speed really hits the nail on the head. So anyway, thank you for watching. Comment below and have a great day. Bye.